All right, Unit 3, Lesson 14 is the first day of solving literal equations. And we already know how to solve equations. We've had these same 4 steps since January 8th. We've been talking about these, well over a month ago. And they have not changed for any problem. Okay? What's going to be different now is that you're going to have more than one type of variable, and you're going to be asked to solve for the specified variable. Okay? But the 4 steps of solving are not going to change. Before we get to our first examples, I just want to quickly introduce you to something called slope-intercept form. All right, where y equals mx plus b is slope-intercept form. You see m is the slope of the line, and the b is the y-intercept. This is something you're going to become very familiar with throughout the next few weeks here and next quarter as well. All right, that's just like I said, nothing more on that. Let's go ahead and move to our examples. All right. Now, looking at example A, my guess is you probably already know the answer. All right, we've been doing this for a while, but I want to make sure we know how to go through the steps again. When I look at this problem, I say, okay, what is being done to the variable? Well, we are multiplying by 5. So the opposite would be to divide. And whatever I do to one side, I do to the other side, and simplify. Okay? When I look at B, a common mistake that people make is they look at this problem, and they say, oh, we're subtracting, so the opposite is to add. Well, if you do that, 7 plus 7 is 14, and it does not cancel out. Okay, so the important thing to remember here is we do not look at the sign behind a number. We look at a sign in front of the number. So this is a positive 7, so I'm going to subtract it. All right, that's going to give me negative 1y. You can put the 1 there if you want. Equal to 5. Then I divide by negative 1, and I get y equals negative 5. And if I go back through the steps, which I probably should have did first, is I would look at the variable and say, okay, what's being done to that? Well, we're multiplying by negative 1, and we're adding 7. So I did the opposite of what was going on. All right, let's take a look at example C. Take a look at that variable. You see that we are multiplying by 2, and we are subtracting 4. Again, looking at the sign in front, not the sign behind. So in order to solve, I'm going to add 4 to both sides. That's going to cancel out. I end up with 2y equaling negative 2. Then I need to get rid of the multiplication, so I divide, and I get y equals negative 1. Again, all this is review, all right, but it doesn't hurt to see it one more time. All right, the last one, we take a look. We're multiplying by 2, and we are subtracting 2. The last thing you say is the first thing you get rid of. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. And you will end up from time to time with decimals or fractions. All right, and we could leave it as 5 over 2. That's simplified, nothing wrong with that. All right, let's move on. Now here's the new stuff. Okay, what you're going to notice is when I look at example 1 before I actually start doing the problems from example 2, you're going to notice that A and A look very similar. B and B look very similar, and the same is true for C and C, and the last one as well, D and D. Okay, what's different is there's an extra piece to the pieces to the equations down below. They get x's in here, whereas up above all they had were y's. All right, the process and idea will still be the same. So when I look at A, I'm going to try to leave this so you can see both still. I ask, okay, I'm asked to solve for y. That's important. Let me highlight that, solve for y. All right, notice that's also called writing in slope-intercept form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the y. Okay, it's important to realize that the y is on the left side. So I'm not even looking at what's on the right side at all. I look at the left side and I say, okay, we're multiplying by 5. Exactly the same as what we did up there. So exactly the same, I'm going to divide by 5. And that's going to cancel out. I'm going to end up with y equaling, instead of 3, it's going to be 3x. Okay, let's take a look at B. You'll notice this time, the 7 has an x with it. So again, when I look at this, I'm going to say, okay, what's being done to y? Well, we're multiplying by negative 1. And we are adding 7x. Notice again how similar these two things are. So the last thing I say is the first thing I get rid of. So I'm going to subtract 7x from both sides. That's going to cancel out, giving me negative y equal to, and I'm always going to write my variable first, something we talked about before. All right. Notice that these are not like terms, so I cannot combine them. I can only rewrite them. So negative 7x plus 12 is how I would rewrite that. Once again, 12 minus 7 is not 5 because this is not 7, it's 7x. So you have to have like terms to do that. All right. I'm going to have to scroll down a little bit to get the rest of my work in here. Last step, just like above, I'm going to divide by negative 1. And I end up with y equaling 7x minus 12. Okay? Let's take a look at example C now. Again, I'm going to take a look at y. I only care about y because that's what the directions tell me. So when I look at y, I can see that we are multiplying by 2 and we are subtracting 4x. And just like we said in the previous two problems, you're going to notice that that is exactly the same as before, but now it has an x. So my steps in solving are exactly the same as they were before. I'm going to add 4x to both sides. That'll give me 2y equal to, and once again we come to this point where negative 6 plus 4x are not like terms, so what I'm going to do is write 4x minus 6. 4x minus 6. Again, it's minus because the sign in front, get my highlighter out for this, right there, alright, that doesn't help, is a negative 6, so the negative becomes a minus sign. Alright? Back to solving, I took care of this, now I have to take care of that, and I divide each and every piece by 2. That's going to cancel, I get y equals 2x minus 3. Something quick to point out here, alright, once again, these equal signs are like brick walls. They really should never move. They should be straight down the page. Alright, last example. We take a look at D now. And once again, reading the problem is going to tell you how to solve it. So when I look at what is being done to y, again, I do not care about x. I only need to get y by itself. We are multiplying by 2, and we are subtracting 2. Guess what? This is 100% the same as it was before. Okay? So, just like before, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. And it's going to cancel out here, so I get 2y equal to, over here I get 3x plus 2, because once again, those are not like terms. Okay, so whereas before we were able to add them, now we just put them down like that. Alright? And so we took care of that. Let's take care of the multiplication. Divide, divide, divide. And we end up with y equaling 3 over 2x plus 1. Alright, so that is the beginning of solving literal equations. Alright, if you have questions, please make sure you ask them in class. Remember, 1C is a great opportunity for you to get some help. We'll see you then. Bye.